The silence meter. José Mayer case getting. Close the door. Where to? Doesn't matter. We're taking the highway tonight. Long stretch. Open road. I've got a story that needs space to breathe. You know what's interesting about power? It makes people invisible. Not the powerful person they're seen everywhere. Their face on TV. Their name in the credits. Their voice in every room. No. The people around them become invisible. The assistants. The junior employees. The people who depend on them for their careers. They're there. Right there. But somehow, nobody sees them. Until one of them speaks up. Brazil. The #MeToo movement hits like a tidal wave. Women around the world are naming names. Exposing abuse. Demanding accountability. Hollywood. Politics. Media. Everywhere. And Brazil? Brazil had its own version. They called it #meu amigo secreto. My secret friend. Women sharing stories of harassment, abuse. Men who used their power to silence, grope, intimidate. And one name came up that shocked everyone. José Mayer. If you're not Brazilian, the name might not mean much, but in Brazil, José Mayer was royalty. 35 years at Globo, the biggest TV network in the country. Dozens of soap operas, beloved characters, a household face, the kind of actor everyone's grandmother adored. And then, in April 2017, a year before #MeToo exploded globally, a young costume assistant named Suslin Tonani published an open letter. She named him, said he harassed her repeatedly over months, said he touched her without consent, made sexual comments, used his power to intimidate. And she wasn't the only one. Tonight, we're driving through Sao Paulo, talking about power, harassment, and what happens when Brazil's most beloved actor gets accused. You ready? Good. Because this one isn't about murder, isn't about blood. It's about something quieter. Slower, more insidious. It's about what happens in the spaces where power meets vulnerability, and what happens when someone finally decides to speak. Let me tell you about José Mayer and the letter that changed everything. Body of the story. Who was José Mayer? Picture this, you're in Brazil. Any decade from the 1980s to the 2010s. It's evening. The whole family's gathered around the TV. The novela starts, the soap opera that runs every night, that everyone watches, that defines Brazilian culture as much as samba and football. And there he is. José Mayer. Handsome. Charming. The romantic lead. The villain you love to hate. The father figure. The complex anti-hero. Whatever the role, he owned it. Born in 1949 in Rio de Janeiro. Started acting in the 1970s. Joined TV Globo and never left. 35 years. Hundreds of episodes. Dozens of iconic characters. He was the kind of actor who didn't just play characters, he became them. Awards. Recognition. Respect. And more than respect, adoration. Brazilians didn't just know José Mayer. They loved him. He was part of the family. Part of the furniture. Part of the culture. And in the world of Brazilian TV, that kind of status means power. Real power. Not just fame but influence, access, authority. The kind of power that makes junior employees nervous. That makes producers look the other way. That makes assistants smile when they want to scream. The world of novela production. To understand this case, you need to understand how Brazilian TV works. Novelist soap operas are the backbone of Globo. They run 6 days a week, 3 or 4 running simultaneously. Each one employs hundreds of people. Writers, directors, producers, camera crews, makeup artists, costume departments, and at the top of the hierarchy, the stars, the actors with 30-year careers, the faces everybody knows. They walk onto set and the energy shifts. People straighten up, speak carefully, avoid making waves, because in the world of novelists, a lead actor can make or break your career. A good word from the right person, you're working for decades. A bad word, you're invisible. That's the environment Suslin Tonani worked in. Who was Suslin Tonani? Suslin Tonani, young, early 20s. Worked as a costume assistant at Globo. Entry-level position. Important work handling costumes for major productions. But not glamorous. She wasn't famous. Wasn't powerful. Wasn't connected. She was just doing her job. And part of her job meant working closely with the actors on set, including José Mayer. According to her account, the harassment started gradually, the way it always does. A comment here, a touch there, something that could be explained away, dismissed, called a joke. But it didn't stop. It escalated. Over months, Suslam said José Mayer made sexual comments about her body, touched her inappropriately on set, put his hands on her without consent, used his position to intimidate her into silence, created an environment where she felt trapped. She didn't feel she could report it, because who would believe a costume assistant over a 35-year global legend? So she stayed quiet, and it continued. April 2017. The letter April 2017. 1 year before #MeToo went global. 1 year before Harvey Weinstein's name became synonymous with Hollywood abuse, Suslam Tonani published an open letter, not to a newspaper, not through a lawyer. She posted it online. Raw.direct. Her own words. She described what happened, named José Mayer by name, described the touches, the comments, the power dynamic. The fear. She said she was tired of being silent. She said she wasn't the only one. Picture the moment that letter went live. Suslam young, not famous, no platform, taking on one of Brazil's most beloved actors. The courage that requires, the fear that must have come with it. And the response was immediate. The explosion. Brazil's entertainment industry went into shock. Not quiet shock. Loud, public, divisive shock. Social media erupted. Two sides formed within hours. People who believed Suslam, finally, we knew. This is how it works. People who defended Mayer. This is a lie. She's looking for attention. He'd never. Other women started coming forward. Not named. Not publicly identified. But quietly through messaging apps, through whisper networks, through direct messages to journalists. It happened to me too. Everyone in the industry knew. He did the same thing to me. The stories multiplied. And Globo, the network that employed both of them, had to respond. Globo's response. Globo issued a statement, said they took the accusation seriously, announced an internal investigation. And then, within days, they suspended José Mayer, removed him from the novella he was currently filming, wrote his character out of the script. For a man who'd been at Globo for 35 years, this was seismic. The network he'd called home for his entire career. The institution he'd helped build. They suspended him. Mayer responded publicly. He denied the accusations. Said Suslam misinterpreted his behavior. Said he never intended to make her uncomfortable. He apologized, but the kind of apology that isn't really an apology. I'm sorry if you felt uncomfortable. Not, I'm sorry for what I did. Subtle difference. But important. The investigation. Globo conducted an internal investigation. Interviewed employees, reviewed complaints, gathered testimonies. The process was largely opaque, not public, not transparent. In October 2017, Globo issued their conclusion. José Mayer had engaged in behavior that was inappropriate and incompatible with Globo's values. He was formally dismissed from the network. 35 years, hundreds of episodes, dozens of iconic roles. Ended with a statement about inappropriate behavior. No criminal charges were filed. Suslam didn't press for criminal prosecution, at least not initially. The case existed primarily in the court of public opinion and employment law. The aftermath. After his dismissal, José Mayer largely disappeared from public life. No major acting roles, no TV appearances. He became, in the language of Brazilian entertainment, queimado, burned. Untouchable. Suslam Tonani continued working in television. Though the path wasn't easy, she faced backlash, lost connections, was labeled difficult by some in the industry. The classic penalty for speaking up. In 2018, when #MeToo exploded globally, and Brazil's own #MeUAmigo SECRETO movement gained momentum, Suslam's case was revisited. Her letter became one of the early examples of what was possible. Proof that naming names, even powerful names, could bring consequences. But here's the uncomfortable truth. José Mayer was never criminally charged, never stood trial, never had to answer questions under oath. He lost his job, lost his reputation, lost his legacy, but he didn't lose his freedom. And for many people, that wasn't enough. The broader context: Suslem's accusation didn't happen in isolation. In 2017 and 2018, dozens of women in Brazilian entertainment came forward with similar stories. Directors, producers, actors, executives, men who'd used their positions for decades to abuse junior employees. Some were fired, some apologized, some denied everything. Very few faced criminal consequences. Because harassment, as distinct from assault, is notoriously difficult to prosecute. It's often one person's word against another's. It happens in private, or in public, disguised as jokes. It's systematic. Gradual. Deniable. And the people it targets, young, lower-level employees, are exactly the people with least power to fight back. Theories: there's no murder here. No body, no crime scene. But there are questions worth examining. Theory 1. Suslem is telling the complete truth. Mayer harassed her repeatedly, over months. She documented it as best she could, reported it when she felt safe enough. Other women's experiences corroborate a pattern of behavior. Globo's internal investigation found enough evidence to dismiss him. This is the most supported theory. The complication: Mayer never faced legal consequences. No trial, no official finding of guilt. His side was never fully examined in a court of law. Theory 2. Cultural misunderstanding. Brazil's entertainment world, like many creative industries, operates with physical norms that don't exist in other workplaces. Kissing on the cheek, hugs, casual physical contact. Maybe Mayer genuinely didn't realize his behavior crossed lines for Suslem. Maybe what he thought was friendly and normal felt violating to her. This theory doesn't excuse the behavior, it explains the dynamic. The problem: multiple women, multiple instances, over years. At some point, misunderstanding becomes pattern. Theory 3. The power imbalance was the crime. Even if nothing José Mayer did would be criminal in isolation. The pattern, the repetition, the use of his position, the intimidation. That's where the real harm lives. Not in one touch, but in the cumulative weight of working in an environment where a powerful man can make you feel unsafe every day with no recourse. That's what Suslem described, and that's what dozens of women corroborated. Theory 4. Incomplete justice. Mayer lost his career, lost his reputation. Some say that's enough, that destroying a man's life over accusations without a trial is its own injustice. Others say it's not enough, that he should have faced criminal charges, that the system protected him because he was powerful. Neither position is entirely wrong, which is what makes this case, like so many harassment cases, so complicated. The unanswered questions: why were no criminal charges filed? How many other women had similar experiences with Mayer? Why did it take Suslem years to speak up, and what does that say about the system? Did Globo know before Suslem's letter? What has happened to Suslem's career since? Power is the real subject here. Not one man, not one accusation, but the system that made it possible for so long. We're almost there. Look, José Mayer never stood trial, never faced a judge or jury. He lost his job, his reputation, his legacy. But in the legal sense, he was never found guilty of anything. So where does that leave us? Suslem Tonani published a letter, named a powerful man, told the truth as she experienced it, and things happened. Globo investigated, found inappropriate behavior, dismissed him. Other women came forward, validated her experience. Brazil had a conversation about power, harassment, and the entertainment industry. But here's what I keep thinking about. How many Suslems are there who didn't write that letter? Who stayed quiet? Who endured? Who smiled when they wanted to scream? Because they knew nobody would believe a costume assistant over a 35-year global legend. Suslem wrote the letter anyway, and it changed things. Not perfectly, Not completely, but it changed things. The meter's off. Sao Paulo's still running, still loud, still full of people navigating power and vulnerability every single day. And somewhere, in dressing rooms and green rooms and production offices, there are conversations happening that should have started decades ago. There's a principle woven into the fabric of existence, that the powerful have a greater responsibility, not a lesser one. That authority is a trust, not a privilege. That those who lead, who are given platforms, influence, access, are accountable for how they use it. José Mayer had 35 years at Globo, 35 years of influence, of access, of power over people's careers. And according to the evidence, according to the investigation that cost him that career, he used some of that power to violate boundaries, to make someone feel unsafe, to take, without permission, what wasn't offered. There's a warning in ancient wisdom, that those who abuse their authority will answer for it. That power is temporary, but accountability is not. Mayer lost everything professional, his career, his network, his legacy. 35 years of work gone. Is that enough? For Suslim, maybe not. For Brazil's entertainment industry, it was a signal, a warning, a moment where the system said, this is not acceptable, not anymore. I think about Suslim sometimes, the courage it takes to write that letter, to know that powerful people will deny it, that some people will call you a liar, that your career might suffer, and to write it anyway. There's a principle in ancient wisdom, that speaking truth to power is sacred, that silence in the face of injustice is complicity, that one voice when it speaks clearly can move mountains. Suslim's letter wasn't just about Mayer. It was about every woman in that industry who'd stayed silent. It was about the culture that made staying silent the safest option. It was about finally saying, this stops here. We're told that those who seek justice will find it, that truth prevails, that the vulnerable will be protected. I want to believe that. And cases like this, imperfect, incomplete, complicated, remind me that the path to that truth isn't straight. It's messy, it's fought, it's costly, but it's worth walking. Hey, thanks for taking this ride with me tonight. This one's different from the others. No murder. No blood. But it matters just as much, because harassment destroys lives quietly. Slowly, over time. If this case made you think, if you're wrestling with questions about power, consent, and accountability, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories that go beyond the obvious. Cases that make you uncomfortable. Questions that don't have clean answers. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. Was justice served when Mayer was dismissed but never charged? Was Suslim's letter brave or reckless? What does accountability look like without a criminal trial? I read everyone. And here's what I want to leave you with. If you've experienced harassment at work, you're not alone. Reporting is hard. Speaking up is scary. The system isn't perfect. But silence has a cost too. Suslim paid that cost 4 years before she wrote the letter. Then she paid a different cost for speaking up. Neither cost is fair, but one of them changed Brazil. I've got one more case to tell you tonight, the last one on our list, and it's completely different from everything we've covered.